Now on BBC One, the Sunday Tea Time News with Mishal, Husain.
The Taliban are all but in control of Afghanistan 2 decades after being ousted by America and its allies. Its fighters' arrival in Kabul today came after a rapid advance towards the capital, sparking an exodus from those able to head towards the border. Foreign diplomats are being airlifted out. The Afghan president has left the country, leaving civilians and his own ministers fearful of what lies ahead.
I might face consequences that I never even dreamed of. And I guess that's the price that we pay for trying to make this world a little better.
In the last half hour, Boris Johnson has said it is now clear there will be a new government in Kabul. The US says it is up to Afghans to decide their future. Also on the programme, tributes for the victims of the Plymouth shootings as they're remembered at Sunday services across Devon. And in Haiti, the search for survivors of the earthquake. More than 700 people are now known to have died. Good evening. Taliban forces have entered the Afghan capital, making their takeover of the country 20 years after being ousted from power all but complete. President Ashraf Ghani is reported to have fled to Tajikistan. The remaining staff of the US Embassy have been operating from Kabul airport, but even there, the security situation is said to have been deteriorating. The latest developments come after the Taliban's rapid advance in recent days through provinces across Afghanistan. Here's our diplomatic correspondent, Paul Adams.
As the Taliban moves in, the West moves out. American helicopters busy over Kabul all day today, ferrying diplomats from the US Embassy to the airport. This disorderly end was not the plan. And nor was this, a city in panic, people desperate to leave, taking what they can, fearing a bloody assault. But so far, it's happening without a fight. In a conference call with security officials, the president, Ashraf Ghani, said rioters and looters would be dealt with. But this is a man whose grip on power has vanished. His face may still gaze down on the city centre, but this afternoon it emerged he'd left the country. The government's senior negotiator pointedly suggesting he was no longer in charge.
The former president has left Afghanistan, leaving the people to this situation. God will hold him accountable, and the people will have their judgment about him. I wish you patience and strength. May God help you.
More signs of panic at the banks, people lining up to take out their savings. With thousands of police officers and security officials abandoning their positions, the Taliban seemingly reversed an earlier pledge not to enter the city. The Islamic Emirate, they said, has ordered its forces to enter the areas of Kabul left by the enemy and where there is a risk of theft and robbery. The citizens of Kabul should not feel any fear.
We want to avoid bloodshed and to destruction to properties of the people, and to not give chance to plunderers, looters who are waiting for such movements to loot or plunder the properties of the people.
But the streets are full of dread. Tens of thousands of civilians displaced by fighting elsewhere, living out in the open, telling stories of abuses at the hands of the Taliban.
The Taliban came into our village in the night. After a few days, we managed to escape as they were murdering the men and boys. They accused them of being in the army or the police. They were taken out of their homes and murdered because they worked for the government.
Away from the capital, more success for the Taliban, taking over the eastern city of Jalalabad, giving them control of the vital road connecting Afghanistan with Pakistan.
The saddest part is that I didn't expect this, but now I might face consequences that I never even dreamed of. And I guess that's the price that we pay for trying to make this world a little better.
Tonight, the Ministry of Defence has released these pictures. Hundreds of British troops arriving in Kabul. With the evacuation of British nationals and eligible Afghans well underway, they won't be on the ground for long. At the border with Pakistan, Afghans are leaving. With or without fighting, the Taliban's takeover looks set to trigger yet another wave of refugees. Paul Adams, BBC News.
The Prime Minister has said that it is now clear there will be a new government in Kabul and that every effort is being made to evacuate British citizens from Afghanistan as soon as possible. He chaired an emergency COBRA meeting this afternoon and Parliament is being recalled. Here's our political correspondent, Ben Wright.
For 20 years, the UK has committed its military, money and lives to Afghanistan. Some of the fiercest fighting was here in Helmand. The effort ends with a frantic scramble to get out.
The situation in Afghanistan continues to be extremely difficult, getting more difficult, I would say. And our priority is to make sure that we deliver on our obligations to UK nationals in Afghanistan, to all those who have helped the British effort in Afghanistan over 20 years, and to get them out as fast as we can.
UK troops first went to Afghanistan in October 2001 after the 9/11 attacks, joining US-led action against al-Qaeda and the Taliban. By the time combat operations ended in 2014, 454 UK soldiers and military personnel had died. Successive Prime Ministers stressed their commitment to the country and protecting the progress made. Today, cross-party fear that progress could vanish.
The real danger is that we're going to see every female MP murdered. We're going to see ministers strung up on street lamps, and this is a decision that I'm afraid has been taken. We haven't heard from the Foreign Secretary in about a week, despite this being the biggest single foreign policy department disaster since Suez.
It's been a catastrophic miscalculation. That is absolutely clear. The UK and the United States both overestimated the capacity of the Afghan government to hold off the Taliban and underestimated the capacity of the Taliban to advance throughout the country. And that has been clear actually for days.
The UK says its mission in Afghanistan had to end once the US announced its decision to leave, despite the consequences. It's a mark of the crisis that MPs and peers will be brought back from their summer break on Wednesday for a day's debate. Many are livid about the way Afghanistan is being left. But talking here won't stop the Taliban, and all MPs can do is ask ministers how a humanitarian and security disaster might be avoided. The situation in Afghanistan will be deeply felt by many families closer to home, reflecting on a mission that wasn't meant to end like this. Ben Wright, BBC News.
Well, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been speaking today about Afghanistan. Let's join our North America editor John Sopel, who's in Washington. How is the Biden administration characterising what's happening now?
Well, they're trying to put as brave a face on it as they can, Mishal, but there is no denying that things have been unfolding at a dizzying pace, and this is turning into a scramble to get out of Afghanistan. The helicopters ferrying people backwards and forwards. The ambassador is now at the airport. The flag has been lowered. Diplomats told to shred sensitive documents. Everyone is anticipating the arrival of the Taliban, and they're reported to already be in the presidential palace. And this is not how it was meant to unfold. Joe Biden promised it would be orderly. It has been anything but. Now, you can debate the policy of the wisdom of withdrawing from Afghanistan, and there are a lot of people on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, who think it's the right thing to do. But the manner of it may not be the fall of Saigon, but it's not far short of this. And yes, Joe Biden inherited this policy from Donald Trump. But the chaos that has unfolded, the warnings that have been ignored, the overestimate of the Afghan forces, that is squarely on Joe Biden's shoulders.
John Sopel in Washington. Thank you. Sunday services at churches across Devon have remembered the 5 people killed in the Plymouth shootings. Prayers were said for Jake Davison's victims, who included his own mother and a 3-year-old girl who was in the street with her father. Let's go live now to Plymouth and our correspondent there, John Kay. John.
Yeah, Mishal, it's just been announced that in the next hour the police cordon here at the scene will be lifted. People will be able to start returning to their homes. And in the last few minutes, the family of one of the victims has released a statement, a tribute to him. The family of Stephen Washington, who was 59. They say he was a much-loved, devoted family man, a husband, father and granddad who would do anything to help anyone, and loved walking his 2 huskies around this area where he was shot on Thursday night. They say the events of the last couple of days have been devastating. Our world turned upside down in the blink of an eye.
It is a time of sadness, of shock and of horror.
A moment of peace after days of pain. In this neighbourhood, many people knew the victims and the gunman.
We pray for those who have died.
Good evening.
We pray especially for Maxine, for Lee and Sophie, for Stephen and Kate. We pray also peace for Jake.
I think as a Christian, I have to pray for Jake as well, because our whole gospel is based on forgiveness. I can't forgive him at this moment in time, but he is a product of the world in which we live in.
Jake Davison only got his gun and licence back last month after an allegation of assault a few months earlier. That decision is now being investigated by the Independent Office for Police Conduct. People who knew the 22-year-old have told the BBC he had a history of mental health problems and violence. Many children witnessed the shootings, and some of them knew the youngest victim, 3-year-old Sophie Martin. There are concerns about the impact on them.
My mum phoned to let us know to lock the doors and shut the windows.
Jade's family live close to the scene, and she says her son has been left traumatised.
Since then he's just been, I'm scared, there's the bad man coming. He doesn't understand that he's gone and that he can't come back. He can't cause any more harm to anybody.
Thank you for being nice.
Children have been showing their gratitude.
Heartwarming.
But community leaders say many will need professional help.
When the kids go back to school after Christmas, it's still going to be something we need to think about. Not just the interim now, it's what's going to happen in the future and how them children can be supported, really.
The community has started raising money for the victims' families. And at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, this city will pause for a minute's silence. John Kay, BBC News, Plymouth.
The death toll from the earthquake in Haiti has risen to 724, with another 1,800 people injured. The epicentre of the quake, which had a magnitude of 7.2, was 80 miles from the capital, Port-au-Prince. James Clayton reports.
The last thing a country in political turmoil needed was this. Friends and family search in the rubble for loved ones, looking, praying for any signs of life. The morning earthquake brought buildings tumbling down, buildings made of heavy cinder blocks and cement. Many people didn't have a chance.
The quake killed her. This death hurt us a lot because she is a street seller like us.
This church was one of many structures that succumbed. The scene's eerily reminiscent of Haiti's devastating 2010 earthquake. This area is remote, and many of the injured are being tended to in makeshift emergency treatment centres.
We cannot provide an assessment yet because the situation is very critical. We have to mobilise and divide the resources of the hospital.
The president has declared a state of emergency. However, the previous president was assassinated only last month, and some worry that Haiti's turbulent political situation makes the country poorly placed to handle a humanitarian disaster on this scale. James Clayton, BBC News.
Here, the latest coronavirus figures have been released, showing there were 26,750 new infections recorded in the latest 24-hour period. That means an average of more than 28,500 new cases per day in the last week. 5,875 people are in hospital with coronavirus. 61 deaths were recorded in the last 24 hours, and that means an average of 91 deaths a day in the last week. On vaccinations, more than 89% of UK adults have now had their first jab, and more than 76% have had both doses. England's cricketers have been working to try and set up a winning position on the fourth day of the Test match at Lord's. Joe Wilson has been watching.
Nothing in Test match cricket is set in stone. Actually, he's made of bronze. The immovable KL Rahul. Out for 5. Mark Wood, quick work and more. Rohit Sharma loves to hit these, and that was his undoing. Moeen Ali's there. He's got it. We've got him. Just one mistake is all it takes. Well, blame the bat. Hold back the biggest celebrations for this moment. That's Sam Curran dismissing India's captain for 20. Virat Kohli back in the dressing room. Chiteshwar Pujara faced 100 balls. He scored 12, got an ovation. It's a Test match. Patience is part of the tradition. Ajinkya Rahane made a painstaking situation-saving England frustrating 50. Stalemate? Well, suddenly Mark Wood, a catch, Pujara gone. And what's that? Hope? Certainly, minutes later when Moeen Ali bowled and Rahane finally fell. Yes, he hit it. He is out. Big wicket for England, big wicket for... Yes, well, players just finished for the day with India 154 ahead, but 6 wickets down. And with England's second innings to come at some point tomorrow, from where I stand now, it seems that anything is still possible.
Joe Wilson at Lord's, thank you. And that's it from us for now. On BBC One, time for the news wherever you are. Goodbye.